Hello everyone, this is Graeme Anderson from Four Corners of the Board, and today I'm going to be looking at the terrifying girl disorder. Now I vaguely know about the Japanese book this game was inspired by, Dogma Magra, but knowing that didn't help me with the theme of this game at all. So you play schoolgirls who have all lost their memories because of the strange power of one of the girls in the group. Your job throughout the game is to regain your memories and determine who you really are. Now there were a couple of things that intrigued me about the gameplay. First was how you collected cards during the round. And the other intriguing aspect is how you score. You didn't know how you scored until you figured out which character you are. And that is not figured out until the end of the game. So does this weird theme and interesting game mechanisms make a good game? Well, let's get it to the table, see how it's played, then we'll come back for my final thoughts on the terrifying girl disorder.
So here we have the game set up for 3 players. Now each player will have a shard card and a reference sheet. Now the main deck is made up of a number of character cards, and if playing with 3 players, you will remove some of the cards. Each player is dealt 4 or 5 cards if you're playing with 3 players, and the first player is chosen randomly. Now the game consists of 5 rounds, and at the end of 5 rounds you will determine which character each player represents and score according to that character. At the beginning of the game, you will not know who you are, but through card play, you will regain your memories and determine who you really are. Each round consists of 4 steps: setup, counseling, regain memories, and then the end of round. Setup is fairly straightforward. You will draw 3 cards per player and lay them face up in a circle. Next is the counseling step. Going in player order, each player will do the following. They will place their shard on one of the cards around the circle, and you are not allowed to play it on top of someone else's shard or right beside another shard. You will then switch position of 2 cards in the circle that do not have shards on them. Finally in this step, you will play cards into your recollection area, which is right in front of you. Now these cards must all be of the same character, but you can play as many as you'd like of the same character. You can also not play any character you already have in front of you, and you must play at least 1 card every round. Whichever cards you have just played, you will then activate that character's power. If you ever do not have any legal cards in your hand, because you have played the cards in your hand already in your recollection area, you must show your entire hand to the other players, then you can play 1 card from your hand as usual. Once each player has placed their shard and play their cards, we move on to the next step. You will now regain some memories. The start player will determine which way around the circle to go, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. Then starting with them, you will take the card underneath your shard and all the cards between your shard and the next shard in the chosen direction. If you ever have more than 8 cards in your hand, you must discard down to 8. Finally, we do the end of round step. First, determine the new start player, and that will be the player who played the most cards into the recollection area that round. If this was not the 5th round, deal another circle and begin again. Otherwise, we go to the end of game scoring. Now before you score, you must determine which character you really are. All characters in the player's recollection area should be face up, and for each rank or character in the game, the player who has the most will be that character and score accordingly. If there is a tie for the most, the player with the most of that character left in their hand is that character. If it's still tied, then all players tied are that character. If a player ends up being multiple characters, that is, they have the most cards of multiple characters, they are only allowed to be 1 character. They will be the character they have the most cards of. If it's still tied, they will become the highest ranked character that they've won. It is possible to be no character. In that case, you'll become the Higan character. Now once you know your true character, you will score them accordingly as outlined on your character reference sheet. You'll receive points for how many cards you have of that character, how many of that character cards you have left in your hand, and you'll receive bonus points based on your character. Whomever has the most points is the winner. Now let's get back to see what I thought about the terrifying girl disorder.
So let's start off with theme and components. Now the cards themselves are of decent quality, and the art is kind of what I would consider typical anime style. Now I'm not an expert on anything anime, so I can't really judge how good it is in that realm, but I thought the art was pretty good. The reference cards, the player reference cards themselves, are very useful. They have all the information that you need about the different suits or girls. It feels very weird saying girls. but it has the name of the suit, the power that you're going to get when you play them into your recollection area, how many points you're going to get for how many cards are left in your recollection area of that suit, and then how you're going to be scoring the VP. I just wish they were slightly bigger and it fit all into one side, but that's fine. The theme is, well, it's just weird. Now, does it fit in the context of the gameplay? Kinda. I mean, you end up being the girl that memories you've collected, and all the other ones are false memories. Like I said, it is a weird theme, but thankfully it doesn't impact the gameplay much. So, what about the gameplay? The game itself is not overly difficult, but the most important and difficult aspect of the game is actually the end game section. It's going to take a few plays to really understand how you can determine which character you actually are, and determining that during the game is very difficult in your first couple plays. When you first play the game, it's going to feel completely random. Whether you win or lose, you're just going to kind of throw up your arms and say, I won, I guess. But once you figure it out, yes, there still is randomness in the game, but you learn to pick up some strategies. Knowing when to play your cards into your recollection area is vitally important. Keeping some of the cards that allow you to manipulate the cards in your recollection area is important. And the other important aspect that you need to be planning for is how many cards in your recollection area you're going to have of the suit that you hopefully will become at the end of the game. For example, if we look at Nigira here, if you have one card of her in your recollection area at the end of the game, and you are Nigira, that's your character you become, you're going to score 12 points. If you have lots of her cards, you're also going to be scoring 12 points. But if you only have 3 cards of her, it's only worth 2 points. And trying to figure out what suits other people are going for is also important, as messing up with their cards is just as important as manipulating the ones in your recollection area. I also enjoy that if you had no identity at the end of the game, you become Higan, which is also interesting. So even if you win no suits or collect no true memories, you still get to score. The shard placement and moving the cards around is also interesting, and I have still not yet decided if it's better to go first or last. Now, you're always going to get the card that's underneath your shard, so going first has that as an advantage. But with the swapping the cards by the other players means you don't know what the board state is at the end of the round. Going last really restricts where you can place your shard, but it gives you much more opportunity to make sure the cards on either side of your shard are good no matter which way the cards are going to be collected. So, like I said, going first or last, I haven't quite decided on that. So, would I recommend this game? I'd have to say, almost. This game does have randomness in it, and at times it can seem that it's completely out of your control. But there is some strategy in this, and I would say that this is a game that you should try before you buy, but with the caveat that one play is probably not sufficient. Which is lucky, because the game only takes around 30 minutes to play, so you can easily get in a few games before deciding whether you want to buy it or not. Now, I ended up being very pleasantly surprised, as I wasn't sure whether I was going to enjoy the randomness, but once I started to see the strategy I could use, I ended up liking this. And really, that's all I can say for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.